So I drew one shape. I will show you the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator very briefly. That Photoshop is raster image and Illustrator is vector one. As you can see, whatever you draw on Illustrator, it is of the nature of vectors, and everything you see as color, shape, effects are just an appearance for that particular vector. I draw this red square, but this is not a real vector square. It has just a path of these four paths, and that red color and the outline of that black, it's just an appearance to those vector paths. Did you get my point? So these four are vector paths of that square. So wherever there is a sharp point, there is a small point you can see, it is called as anchor point, which decides the geometry of that particular shape. This is the vector path, and this is an anchor point. And in between the anchor point, you can see this small another point is the round corner. You can select that particular point and make a round shape for that particular shape. So it's that. And whenever we draw a circular shape, we have another element in the shape, that is this handle, which controls the curvature of particular path. You got the point? So this is the vector. It is the basis of Illustrator, and everything you see on the top of that, it's just an appearance to that. So if I give a stroke of 10 points, it is just an appearance for a dimensionless vector. Okay, this is the basics of vector. Now let's move to some of the major tools. So this is the tool palette in Illustrator. In this tool palette, I will tell you the important tools first. So this is the shape tool. In this you can see many tools, many shapes. So first one is the rectangle, shortcut is M. I will suggest you to always practice software using shortcuts. That will substantially reduce your using speed and make you efficient to use that particular software. So I am on the rectangular tool right now. I will just click and drag to create a rectangle. If I use shift, I can create square. So shift, control and alt for any software, for the Adobe I am saying, it is the modifier keys. You can use these keys to modify your commands. Okay, if I am using eraser tool, I can use alt as a modifier key, shift as a modifier key to make that tool into something different. So shift, alt and control are the modifier keys. So I will use these terms a lot. Then this is the shape. Then I will tell you about these two most important tools for the Illustrator. So first one is the normal selection tool, with which you can move, you can rotate, you can round corner it, you can resize it. And if you use the modifier keys, you can do it proportionally, you can move it in the X, Y and 45 degrees, same as Photoshop. Okay, this is the normal selection tool. Let us go to the interesting one, that is the anchor point tool, direct selection tool. So direct selection tool, you can edit the individual anchor points which I just told you about. You can edit the single anchor points for any object. This is the beauty of vectors, because we are working with vectors. This is not a single pixel. So if you want to do this in Photoshop, you have to change the information for every pixel. So you have to take brush, you have to change it, you have to do it. It's a tedious task. Okay, so this is the beauty for vector works. And if you can zoom in Illustrator till 64,000%, as you can see in here. And for the Photoshop, it is 3200 only, because it seems to be pixelated. So you cannot have that much quality in Photoshop. Now with the direct selection tool, what else you can do? I can edit these geometries. Let us go to text tool. I will show you. In the text tool, so many have asked how we can edit the text. Okay, simple, similar as Photoshop. I am in the text tool, double clicking it. Let us change the font. We'll take simple one. If I right click on the font, there is an option called create outline. If you create outline, that text will become a shape and you can create typographic illustrations through this thing. How we can create typographic illustrations? Now this is a group. I will double click on it to go inside the group, and now I can individually select each and every letter and edit that letter. So let us edit with our direct selection tool. I am into direct selection tool. The shortcut is A. I am selecting all these anchor points below, stretching it. I am selecting this one, stretching it. I am selecting this one, stretching it. Let us go to rectangle tool. I am drawing a rectangle. Now, while moving, this is normal selection tool, and while moving, if you use Alt, it will take a copy. Okay. With Shift and Alt together, you can take a copy in constraint direction, in X, Y, or 45 degrees. Okay. Now I took one copy, I placed the copy, and if I press Ctrl D, it will take the similar copies. Okay. This is how you can edit the text, have typographic illustrations. Okay. This is very interesting. You can explore this a lot. You can change the locations. I will show you some typographic illustrations. They are very interesting. Then next tool is very important, that is the pen tool. This pen tool. With pen tool, you can create paths however you want. I am just clicking and clicking, it is creating a straight path. If I click and drag, it will create curved paths. Okay. This is the pen tool. Then if I double click on the pen tool, the next option for the pen tool is the anchor point tool, very important. Whenever we have anchor points in a geometry, if I have a circular geometry, if I go to this anchor point tool, you can see this is the curved path. So this may have handles. This is have handles. If I go to anchor point tool and if I just click on this anchor point, now handles are gone. If I click and drag, it will add the handles. So this is the anchor point tool. If I use modifier keys, I can click. I can make handles in constraint direction. Okay, X, Y, and 45 degrees with the modifier key Shift. This is anchor point tool. Next, this is of not use for ours right now. The polygon tool is very important. We need to create polygons of different shapes. Now this is by default, it's a hexagon. I am clicking and dragging. I am into the command right now, and if I use up arrow key and down arrow key, I can increase and reduce the size of a polygon. Okay, this is one way. Now this is drawn. Let us edit some anchors for this. We'll go to direct selection. I will select this anchor point. I don't want this anchor point. Let us delete that. I don't want this one, so delete that. With Shift, this is the modifier key. Okay, so this is anchor point tool, direct selection tool, normal selection tool, shape tool. You explore all these things. There are so many options in depth for each and every tool are there. Okay, so explore those options. I am just making you comfortable with the software. I am not going into the each and every detail and shortcut of that. Okay. Then what else can we cover? Important tool. Where is that? It's not a large tool set. So I will go to toolbar and advanced tool set. So I went to Windows, toolbars and advanced one. So it has many options. So in the line tool, there is an option called rectangular grid tool. So you can create tables very easily in this. I am in the command right now. If I use right arrow key, left arrow key to increase or decrease the columns and rows of the table. Okay, this is the grid, rectangular grid. There is another option to create polar grid. Click and drag. I can increase the concentric circles. I can increase the radial lines. So this is the polar grid. Okay. If you double click on that, you have so many options to work with. So you can explore those options. They are very interesting. Very interesting tool in Illustrator is also a graph tool. You can even create very interesting, very beautiful graphs out of that. Let us create a pie graph. Okay. I am into the graph tool. I'm into the graph tool, click and drag. Now this is a graph. Let us add the values. I'm adding random values. You can add the area program of your project. You can add anything here. Uh, in proportion, let us add 7, 8, 10. Okay. So this is the pie. Okay. So there are so many options to create uh, your graphs in the Illustrator. You also explore this option. I will show you one interesting thing. Now, this is our basic graph. How we can create this very interesting. Now, we will create this in a 3D. We saw a 3D option yesterday. How we can make this a 3D thing. So, I will go to Effect, 3D, Extrude and Bevel. See, in a matter of time, we have created a 3D isometric graph, which is very useful for us. Now, this is not that interesting to look at. So, what we will do is, let us create something interesting for this. Now, this is a graph, okay. What we need to do to make this very interesting is we need to expand this first. Expand this means the appearance, the effect of this is a graph. So we cannot directly work on that to make it very interesting, or we cannot change individual color for this because it is a graph as its base property. So we need to first expand this and make it a shape. Okay. So to make it a shape, I will go to object and let us expand this particular graph. Object, expand. Just a second. Okay. Now I am ungrouping that. Now this is a shape. Okay. You can individually select and work with your graph. You can have colors to this thing. I will show you one interesting thing in Illustrator. I will change individual colors. Now the colors are not showing. That means into our color guide, this is the panel that is called as color guide, that you can see through windows. This is the color guide, and in that color guide, our best properties for color is set to be grayscale. We need to change it to RGB to see the colors. You might face this problem, so you can go to this color tab from the windows and change the property to RGB or HSB or CMYK anyhow. So all these things are in the grayscale only. Let us change to RGB first. I will change the color quickly. Now let us add effect to each and every shape. Isometric top. For this extrusion depth, I will keep it 50. Okay. For this one, effect 3D. Extrude and bevel for this one. Isometric top, I will keep the extrusion depth to be 100. Okay. Now it is not showing properly because of the arrangement of that. So I need to arrange those properly to make it proper. So I will go to this. Let us add the effect to all the first. We'll keep it 70. Isometric top. Okay. For this one, effect 3D classic. Isometric top. Let us keep it 50. Now to arrange these things, you have to right click on this transform, arrange and bring to front. Let us bring this to front. Then this is in the front also, transform, arrange, bring to front. Okay, let us arrange that. I am zooming in to arrange that thing. Let us take it back and So you can create graphs very interestingly in Illustrator only. Okay, if you use the latest 3D tool, you can even render this thing. Now it will not show because we used the earlier one. This is the way you can create. You can explore that graph wall apart and you can create very beautiful graphs. Then there is an interesting tool by which you can change the color palette of your any artwork instantly. If I select everything, I am selecting everything, and there is an option called recolor artwork. If I click on that recolor artwork, I can instantly change all the colors. See. So this is very useful to get ideas for color palette, for colors, what colors are suiting the design and everything. And instantly you can change individual color also. If there are so many colors on the palette, you can change the single color instantaneously throughout the artwork through this recolor artwork option.